business cycles.
And we're back for season 2. So, Mary, I'm tempted to say that we made it, but it feels like our break flew by, and in that short time, I forgot everything about how to do this. I'm simultaneously having a hard time getting back in the saddle, but I'm also awkwardly climbing back in and remembering how much I love doing this. So how about you? How are you doing? You've been busy with all manner of fun and summer projects.
Yeah, it's just getting ready because I have to be honest, like in the summer months, I'm like t-shirts, no makeup, ponytail. So it's just like drying my hair and putting on makeup, like, oh, okay, this is how I'm supposed to be presentable. And honestly, a teeny bit low energy today. Had some guests this past weekend and into the week, and just, like boo-hoo, right? Like big problems to have. But my energy level is not like in work mode, which is a nice thing for summer. But I think as you're talking about it, like I'm very on and off work mode, and so we've put so much into this podcast. It is work. It's our our project. And so I'm trying to negotiate the like, hey, wake up, get into work, get your work persona on and perform. But it's like, hey, but I'm just chilling in the summer. And so I think there's a little bit of my non-work persona coming through today, which is kind of interesting and kind of the stuff that we talk about. And we're going to talk about more this season about like personas and all that kind of good stuff. I know you're a yogi and have a yoga instructor even. I went to a really good yoga class on Saturday, and she was giving the whole spiel like, we meet ourselves where we are, and you might not be able to do a pose today that you did yesterday, and you might need to do child's pose because you're really exhausted, you don't know why. So I think I'm approaching the recording of our podcast today in that kind of way, which is like, I'm a little stiff, not feeling like I'm going to be doing like a lot of flying around. We might need to stop the recording and do a child's pose and catch up. But I also think this is cool because this is the kind of stuff we talk about on the show. And I think it's interesting to kind of, break open the intellectual stuff that we talk about so much and kind of like draw attention to like, hey, this happens, right? People go to work and you're like you're going through the motions and you can feel it and you're going to give it your best. Not because you don't want to, but we're like human beings. We're not performers.
Yeah, and I think there really is something to say for showing up with what you've got in like given day. And, I think there's like the memes of, some days 10% is your 100%. And even for me this morning, I mean, what you're talking about is just, like so accurate relative to how I'm feeling right now. Because I woke up this morning and I felt bad about how there's like, I had all these aspirations for things that I wanted to have done before we did this first episode and this first recording, and they're not done. So that was actually creating this kind of tension in me about kind of like the thing of like something being sort of like good enough to just actually show up and give it a shot and try a new format and even just get back into the thing. I mean, like the setup, like you're saying, getting ready, like we record at the end of the day. So like most of the day, it's hard not to be thinking about the episode and looking at the script and thinking and like getting into the headspace for it. So even that, but I do think that for me this morning, that kind of little devil on the shoulder that's like, maybe we should just postpone it, that kind of thing where you can like hear that that's one of the things that's like offered up as an option, and that instead what we're doing is we're doing the showing up part, which is like you show up with like, come as you are kind of thing. And I do think it's important and for people like us and presumably our listeners to be talking about this kind of thing, which is like, listen, if you have to show up, if for you to show up, you need to be at 100%, perfect makeup, cognitively like sharp as a tack, fully prepared, then that means you can't really show up as often as you actually need to. So it's like more like, okay, well, if you can show up at the level you're at and just like present at the best possible of not like level of your capacity, then that's a better recipe for
I'm gonna
like
pull on
success.
that a little more and even say that I've gotten feedback because we've talked on the show like how I'm a recovered perfectionist and all that kind of good stuff, overachieving. And I have realized over the years that sometimes when I show up not super like stoked and like rearing right out of the gate, that actually some of that softness and a little bit of vulnerability actually makes whatever I'm doing better. And that has taken me a really long time to accept because I assume that the performance and the value of what I'm doing is more important than who I am. But I'd argue that, like, you know, some of the things that we're going to be talking about today in the show really resonate with people personally. And so maybe if we're a little bit more in touch, like a little more vulnerable and a little bit more in touch with our humanness coming into this, that maybe we'll have that kind of reaction to the content and it would like kind of connect into those things in a more meaningful way. So yeah, I'm kind of embracing the like it's probably more than good enough.
It's probably more than good enough. Let's do it. Okay. So relationships at work. So relationships at work are critical for professional success, but they also introduce complications and gray areas. It's helpful to understand the dynamics in work relationships so you can be mindful of how they might support your best interests or get in the way of them. So when you hear the phrase, our workplace is like one big family, what comes to mind? Yeah, if the definition of family is blood-related people with common ancestry who live and care for one another as part of a unit, like how might this be similar or different from your work reality? One of the important implications of the term family is a unity that weathers and transcends hardships and works through mistakes of any magnitude. It also implies lineage and tradition that stretch back into history and reach into the future. Yet this isn't how every family operates. So when I think of the idealism of a family, and I might be going too hard into this, I think about an everlasting opportunity for redemption, steadfastness through hardships. I think of parents who stand by their child on death row or visit their comatose child in the hospital on a ventilator for years. But again, not all families have this level of cohesion. So when we refer to a work family, it's a binding implication for the employee with very little specificity and accountability for the employer. Like, I'd like to suggest, and this is a little bit of humor here, I'd like to suggest that, when a company says, we're like a family, a company has to provide the example of the specific family that they resemble. Is it the, Pritchett Dunphys from Modern Family, or is it the Manson family? And the thing is that that always gets me on this is that there's an implication in that and how that lack of specificity creates a complete lack of accountability for being able to nail what that even means, but it has an incredibly high emotional load. So unless you are working in the family business, this phrase, this company is like a big family, is patently false. There are compelling reasons why employers and some well-meaning bosses may use this phrase. It's important to understand the rationale or subconscious motivators behind an organization's culture and employee interpersonal dynamics, so you're better able to assess the risks and trade-offs which come with the territory.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, and share with other psychos you know. We'd also love to hear from you, so hit us up on our socials. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook under @BusinessPsychosPod. Bye.